the cholesterol story. What do I have pictured there? Soap. A bottle of soap. I had a gentleman came to some of my meetings. He says, Dr. Clark, I don't understand what happened to me. My total cholesterol has always been low. It's been around 140. My HDL has always been high. The doctors always pat me on the back and say, you are lucky you had a good cholesterol you inherited. And I had a massive heart attack and found myself getting a bypass surgery. What went wrong? Well, as I got to know the gentleman socially outside of the lectures, I discovered that his main source of cholesterol in his diet was pizza, ice cream, and other sources of oxidized cholesterol. You know, when they tell you your cholesterol is 140, it doesn't take into consideration the source of that cholesterol. There's cholesterol that's bad and there's cholesterol that's good, and I probably shouldn't call it that because most people will call LDL cholesterol bad and HDL cholesterol good. But in reality, the cholesterol that's in your body can be oxidized and can be a big cause of problems. People who don't eat enough antioxidants, i.e. fruits and vegetables, end up with more oxidized cholesterol. For the same cholesterol level, people who eat fewer fruits and vegetables are more likely to have a heart attack, a fatal heart attack. And so there's an important aspect here that your test isn't telling you. But first of all, we do know that high cholesterol is bad. Why does cholesterol go high? And why do I have a lady here scrubbing a dish? Cholesterol's main job in your body is soap. It's the soap in your body. And if you want to know what's going to take more soap, you just think about what's going to be the hardest to wash off your dishes. Grease, that's right. And stuff that's baked on hard, that's now brown, stuff that's solid at room temperature, foods that are high in fat, peanut butter. There's different things that are going to be very hard to wash off your dishes. And you can figure, if you eat that same stuff, it's going to be very hard to wash off your intestine, and it's going to take more soap. Here is the way it works inside you. We call it the enterohepatic circulation. Entero means the intestines. Hepatic means the liver. I call it the soap cycle. You can call it that too if you want. The soap cycle works like this. When you eat something that's high in fat, your stomach has the ability to judge that fat level and to send a signal to the liver, hey, add more soap, we're sending a load of fat down. And the liver then takes and puts the soap into the small intestine through the bile duct. Some of it might be stored in the gallbladder. That's what your gallbladder is. It's a soap container. Like in the bathroom, you know, you go squirt, squirt. That's what your gallbladder does. They call it bile salts, but it's largely cholesterol esters. And so this soap gets squirted into the small intestine. It mixes with all the fats. It emulsifies them so that they can go into your blood, which is water-based, not fat-based. And then they get absorbed at the end of the small intestine into the portal circulation. It's blood vessels that go from the intestine straight to the liver. Then they come out of the portal system and go into the liver, where they're reprocessed, made into soap again, and ready to send around the circulation path. The more fat you eat, the more soap it'll take. The more soap that'll be in your circulation, in your bloodstream, the higher your cholesterol will be. Now, cholesterol has other functions as well. It's made into vitamin D and hormones and cell walls, but that's a very small part of it compared to what happens in your intestines. So anything that requires more soap will end up raising your cholesterol. For each 1% that you increase the amount of fat in your diet, your cholesterol can go up a predictable 1.5 points. And so this is a relationship you have to keep in mind when you're lowering your cholesterol. Now we said certain fats will make it worse. For example, the animal fats, saturated fats, fats that are solid at room temperature. And they'll raise your cholesterol by 23% just because it takes that much more soap. You know, the Bible talks about those fats, doesn't it? When the children of Israel came out of Egypt and they'd been used to eating the flesh pots of Egypt, God tells them, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Ye shall eat no manner of fat of ox, or of sheep, or of goat, none of these saturated fats." Very interesting. He'd tell them that. He wanted them to clear their minds and get ready for Mount Sinai, I guess. What's butter? More animal fat. 40 grams per day will increase your cholesterol by 20 points, predictably. And so it's definitely a part of the problem. Trans fat. Oh, I don't eat butter, I eat margarine. And margarine is solid at room temperature. It's made of this trans fat stuff, and that'll make your cholesterol go up. In one study where they studied people who had died of a heart attack, they looked at how much trans fat they had in their cells compared to people who had not died of a heart attack. And those people who died of a heart attack had 13% more trans fat in their bodies than those who didn't. Trans fat's very dangerous for causing atherosclerotic plaque. Where do we get our trans fat anyway? Anything that's got oils in it that's cooked at a high temperature will produce trans fat. Anything that has shortening, margarine, or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil will have trans fat. Cakes, cookies, crackers, pies, bread. In the American diet, that makes up about 40% of the trans fat products. Animal products, 21%. Margarine, fried potatoes, potato chips, corn chips, popcorn, household shortening. All kinds of things have trans fat. We talked about that the other night, didn't we? But there are some better oils. I mean, if you were on no oil and you started eating any oil, your cholesterol would go up. But if you switched from really bad oils, saturated fats, to really good oils, then your cholesterol will come down. And monounsaturated oils, like those found in olives and nuts and seeds and avocados, are very good at lowering cholesterol, especially the omega-3s, like flax. Polyunsaturated fats tend to be a little bit questionable. They will lower your cholesterol, but they're very unstable. They'll turn to trans fat inside your body, and so they get oxidized easy. Now let's talk about another factor here. Looking at the intestines again, there's a difference between eating corn oil and eating corn, eating olives and eating olive oil. And the difference is this: it has to do with where the majority of those oils are absorbed. When you eat foods that have refined oils in them. Oh, and by the way, how many ears of corn does it take to make 1 teaspoon of corn oil? 14, 12 to 14. Lots of ears of corn. And so, you know, this stuff is pretty well hidden and for a good reason. But if you eat that corn oil, then it's absorbed with the soap right here early on in the small intestine. And it's absorbed with cholesterol esters a lot more than when you eat it as whole foods, like eating the nuts instead of the nut oils, or eating the corn instead of the corn oils. Then it's absorbed down here, not so much with cholesterol esters, but with phospholipids, which are a little different chemical structure, and phospholipids are part of cell walls. And so, well, let's see how this works. Cheese is a high-fat food, mostly saturated fat, makes your cholesterol go up. But if you switch cheese with vegetable fat, eat corn oil or olive oil or soybean oil instead of cheese, then you can lower your cholesterol by 23 points and your LDL by 17 points. But let's switch not with corn oil, but let's switch with nuts. Let's eat nuts instead of oil. So now we're going to compare, instead of going to vegetable fat, we're going to go to nuts. And then when you eat the nuts instead of oil, you can lower your cholesterol nearly twice as much by 41 milligrams per deciliter and your LDL by 33. So you see, if you're eating foods that naturally have the oils, the effect is much greater at lowering your cholesterol. Now, what is this LDL anyway? Well, we got to talk about that. LDL is low-density lipoprotein. It's like the truck that carries cholesterol from your liver to the other parts of your body that need it, like your brain. LDL is a truck line that you don't want to be too busy. You don't want too many trucks in that particular motor pool. On the other hand, HDL is the cholesterol molecule, that high-density lipoprotein that brings cholesterol back to the liver for reprocessing. Now, do you remember when the garbage trucks went on strike in New York City? And it was on the news, stuff's piling up, and this is a problem, and they were talking about that. And well, there were some people there who got innovative. They said, oh, this is a problem. Our trash is all piling up. What are we going to do to get rid of the trash? And they got an idea. Every day they took their trash and put it in a nice box, wrapped it in nice wrapping paper like Christmas paper or birthday wrapping paper. Then they put it in the back seat of their car, rolled down their windows, and left it parked where they worked. Every day somebody came by and stole their trash for them. You want to have lots of trash trucks working here to carry old cholesterol back from the body to the liver. You want very few delivery trucks carrying stuff out. So we like high HDL and low LDL. And so you understand that. All right, what's the problem with high cholesterol? Well, heart disease. Here's from the Framingham study. Notice that the higher the cholesterol, the higher the incidence of death from heart attack. And so as your cholesterol goes up and up and up, so does the death rate. And it's sort of exponential there. So you really want your cholesterol to be low. How low? Well, somewhere around here, in China. How many of you have seen the China study book? Anybody read that book? Over in China, the cholesterol, a high cholesterol would be 140. It would be out of range. Their top of their range is like 139 or 138, something like that. So, our range goes way up because we're all eating this fat stuff. But so 140 would be great. Dr. Coldwell Esselstyn of the Cleveland Clinic has shown on angiography that blockages in the heart can be reversed by changes in diet alone. Here's an angiogram of a blood vessel nearly completely plugged here. Coronary artery. Here is 32 months later, same coronary artery, now wide open, no angioplasty, no stent, no roto-rooter, no bypass surgery, just changes in diet. What were the changes? The optimal diet, according to him, consists of grains, legumes, that's beans, vegetables, and fruit with less than 10 to 15% of the calories coming from fat. Low-fat, vegetarian diet. Very interesting. He goes on to say that this diet minimizes the likelihood of stroke, obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and cancers of the breast, prostate, colon, rectum, uterus, and ovary. Medicare ever make any promises like that? How about Blue Cross Blue Shield? No, it's nice to have insurance if you get in trouble. I like to have a spare tire for my truck, but I tell you what, I hate to get out in a snowstorm to change a tire. We have to take care of ourselves, don't we? That's the best insurance. Well, there's other things that happen besides heart disease with letting your cholesterol get out of hand. Your eyeballs will start complaining. They call it macular degeneration. It increases the risk by 80% with a cholesterol of 240. And how about high blood pressure? It goes up. The higher your cholesterol goes, the higher your blood pressure will probably go. They're very, very related, along with obesity. Now, we said that cholesterol's the soap. And the more fat you eat, the more soap it takes. So therefore, you're going to have a higher cholesterol. But there's another little trick that's going on too. And that is when you eat animal protein. Even in the absence of fat or cholesterol, that animal protein makes your liver pump out more soap. And so this is casein, milk protein. It will make your liver produce more cholesterol. People who drink cow's milk or eat different cow's milk products milk, cheese, yogurt, whatever, have predictably higher cholesterol. 7 points higher for their cholesterol and 5 points higher for the LDL. This happens quite regularly. How about eating meat? If you eat meat weekly, then your cholesterol will probably be around 200. You eat it daily, it'll probably be up around 255 because of the contribution both of the fat in the meat and what the protein does to your liver's cholesterol production. So let's compare vegetarians and omnivores. Compared to vegetarians, users of animal products such as milk, eggs, and dairy eat 50% more fat. It's going to take more soap. Have 30% higher cholesterols. Have 42% higher LDL cholesterols. 38% higher triglycerides. Have 32% higher blood sugars and are 5 times more likely to have hypertension. There are good proteins, though. When they take and they trade off animal protein for soy protein, then they see a reduction in triglycerides, LDL, total cholesterol, and an improvement in HDL. Now, what happens if I eat cholesterol itself? I mean, you're talking about cholesterols being soap, and so if I eat grease, I make more soap. But what happens if I eat soap? Well, it isn't quite so dramatic an increase in your blood cholesterol. It increases a bit, and it's very predictable also. Here, the more cholesterol you eat in your diet, 100, 300, 500, how much cholesterol is in one egg? Around 200, 250, somewhere in there, depending on the size of the egg. So, one egg will start increasing your cholesterol. You can see there's a predictable increase in cholesterol the more of it you eat, both in your LDL and in your total cholesterol. But I want to say here, while it doesn't make your cholesterol go up dramatically like eating grease, the cholesterol you get in your diet is very different than the cholesterol you produce in your liver. It's been out in the air, it's often oxidized, it's often gone rancid perhaps, it has some deterioration, and it's the biggest source of the cholesterol that will cause a heart attack for you. By the way, where can you find cholesterol in foods? Is there any cholesterol in fruits and vegetables? No. None whatsoever? Why none in fruits and vegetables? Yes, that's right. Cholesterol is made by your liver. A fruit and a vegetable does not have a liver. All right, so milk has some, but notice that's 1 cup of milk. Ice cream has some, but notice that's half a cup. Butter has some. Notice that's 1 tablespoon. So really, if you're comparing cup to cup to cup, this would be a huge number. Tuna has some. This is with 3 ounces. And notice beef brains, $16.97. Oh, almost $1,700. And who eats beef brains? We had a friend. I'm from Kansas. There's a big meat packing plant right outside of Wichita. One of our friends was working there as a night watchman. He's watching as they're hosing out intestines, and he says, "What are you doing with those intestines?" They're hanging them up in a truck. "Oh, those are going to Hardee's." Then they saw big cow heads, horns, hair, brains, eyeballs, and all going on this conveyor belt going through a machine. Big noise, and out the other side came this green blob. He says, "What on earth are you doing with that? What is that?" And they said, "Oh, a little more processing, that'll be animal shortening." And so, yes, a lot of people are eating beef brains. And when you eat cholesterol, it raises the inflammation in your body. Inflammation is often marked in your body by calcium deposit. Inflammation in shoulders. You get tendinitis with calcium deposit, bone spurs, and so forth. Inflammation in your heart, you get atherosclerosis and calcium deposit in your heart blood vessels. And the more cholesterol you eat, the more calcification you can expect in your coronary arteries. "Oh, but I don't eat red meat, I eat white meat." Well, white meat doesn't help. Chicken and fish do not lower your cholesterol. Why? Well, because the proportion of cholesterol and fat is the same as red meat. There just may be a little bit less, but the proportion is still the same. And so it tends to make your cholesterol go just as high. Now, as cholesterol makes your inflammation go up, inflammation increases the risk of other things. People on a a lot of dietary cholesterol, getting cholesterol in what they eat, have more asthma and lung inflammation, more liver inflammation, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease leading to cirrhosis, prostate inflammation, and prostate cancer. What's more, the inflammation will increase things like bone resorption, so you end up with more osteoporosis. And the inflammation can cause autoimmune diseases. Cholesterol and triglycerides, when they're high, increase inflammation and you get more inflammatory arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis. Cholesterol seriously decreases mental performance. There's going to be an exam after this. So you have to remember this point. The reason I'm going to have you remember this point is because if you're eating cholesterol and your brain isn't working too well, and then you take pills to get your cholesterol down that make your brain not work too well, are you going to be able to tell a difference? No, your cholesterol will go down, but your brain still won't be working. So we're going to talk about the pills in a little bit. Alzheimer's disease goes up with eating cholesterol. Rabbits aren't supposed to eat cholesterol, but if you feed rabbits cholesterol, they get Alzheimer's changes in their brains. And so you can study Alzheimer's in rabbits. Time after eating a high-fat meal down here across the bottom. Oxygen on the brain up here. Let's see what happens. If we eat a high-fat meal here at time 0, notice that the oxygen on the brain falls below 70%. What's more, it doesn't return to normal for 3 whole days. That's a long time. I had a gentleman got up, he was giving a whole talk. He's talking about his mother, who had a big party for her retirement. Everybody brought her high-fat foods for the party, wonderful things to eat and rejoiced that she was retiring. She loaded up on those things, went home, went to bed. Next morning she woke up stroked out. Half her face not working, half her body not working. She had eaten too much fat food, lowered the oxygen on her brain, probably already had plaque in her brain, so she lowered the oxygen too low, and she stroked out, spent her entire retirement having people take care of her. But who stops with one high-fat meal one day, next day another high-fat meal? Next day, another high-fat meal. It's going to be 3 more days till the brain returns to normal. Some people have never had a fully functioning brain. Oh, don't name any names. No pointing fingers. Depression follows as well. As that brain quits working, as your cholesterol levels go up and the fat in your blood goes up, you end up more and more depressed. On the other hand, some of these programs, like lowering your cholesterol, predictably decreases depressive symptoms and the severity of psychological symptoms. Now we got to talk about what makes cholesterol go bad, because when cholesterol goes bad, it's dangerous. So anytime you take a food that's high in cholesterol and you subject it to frying, grilling, heating of any kind, that cholesterol tends to get oxidized. It tends to deteriorate. It tends to change into a free radical, and when that free radical gets in your body, it causes trouble. The longer a food sits on a shelf, the more heat it had, the more light, radiation, oxygen, moisture, the more acid that was involved in its processing, the more oxidizing agents that were used, like anti-foaming agents and surface finish agents and emulsifiers, and the longer it's stored at room temperature. For example, pancake mixes. They're dried. My uncle died at the age of 39 of a heart attack. He was an anesthesiologist at the University of Texas. He left behind my aunt and 2 cousins. His nightly supper? Ice cream. And the ice cream, when they feed laboratory animals oxidized cholesterol, like from ice cream, within 24 hours of feeding them ice cream, they developed lesions in their blood vessels like those that would lead to plaque and heart attacks in human beings. 24 hours after eating this food, you're getting lesions in the blood vessels, sores in the blood vessels. And so what are people's favorite oxidized cholesterol sources? Custard mixes, where you have the milk and cream and so forth, and eggs and sugar. And what's people's favorite custard mix? Ice cream. Pancake mixes, where they've dried the eggs and they put the eggs into the mix and it sits on the shelf, and the whole time it's sitting on the shelf, the oxygen is next to the cholesterol and the cholesterol is getting oxidized. One package of this type of pancake mix will have billions, trillions of molecules of oxidized cholesterol. And you eat that stuff, gets in your bloodstream, causes death in cells lining the blood vessel walls. Parmesan cheese, you know those green canisters that sit there forever. And of course, lard. So, what about junk food? Anytime you have food that's processed and put in a crinkly bag, it still has air in there, it's going to make oxidized oils and oxidized cholesterol. Fast foods, cheese, puffs, potato chips, all these hydrogenated fats, raises the cholesterol, particularly the oxidized cholesterol. Compared to vegetable oils, butter and cheese are very atherogenic, meaning they cause heart disease. Cheese contains high levels of oxidized cholesterol. I mean, is cheese fresh? No, that stuff's been rotted, aged. And so it has a lot of oxidized cholesterol in it. And this oxidized cholesterol is particularly dangerous for cancer. Skin cancer. We're going to talk about skin cancer Friday night. Tell you how to avoid it and still get your sunshine. But this is one of the ways. Don't eat oxidized cholesterol, because the oxidized cholesterol is a huge cause of skin cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, ulcerative colitis, prostate hyperplasia leading to cancer. All these things increase the more oxidized cholesterol you eat. Gallstones, much more likely to happen in somebody eating cholesterol than somebody who isn't. And any resemblance of this person to someone you know is purely coincidental. Every 1 milligram per deciliter increase in total cholesterol increases the risk of erectile dysfunction by 1%. So if your cholesterol is 240 instead of 140, guess what? Troubles. And that brings up another subject. How about oral contraceptive pills? Maybe the reason people can't get pregnant on them is what it does to their cholesterol. It'll raise your LDL up by as much as 47% in the study back in 2003. So this is very dangerous. This is why they're more likely to have strokes as well. And speaking of pills and drugs and so forth, caffeine. 200 milligram intake of caffeine. Well, that would be 2 cups of coffee that you make at home. If you go down to Starbucks, that's 1 cup of coffee. If you get a latte, that'll be a half a cup of coffee. But 2 cups of coffee can increase your cholesterol by 11 milligrams per deciliter. And it'll mess with your LDL and HDL as well. Decreases the HDL. Puts the trash trucks on strike. Parked. Alcohol tends to raise your triglycerides, even small amounts of alcohol. And so 1 drink per day can increase triglycerides by 10 points. And triglycerides are just as predictive of a heart attack as is a high cholesterol, by the way. And so if your triglycerides go over 200, your risk of stroke goes up by 50%. And so we talked about the lady who got a stroke from her partying. Now let's talk about the drugs that will lower your cholesterol. You know that statin drugs are the #1 selling drug worldwide. They have the largest income of any drug, the statins. Rhabdomyolysis is one of the complications. What's that? Your muscles just basically turn to garbage. They deteriorate. Then you get muscle pains. Liver toxicity. If you're taking them, you should get your liver enzymes tested every so often, every few months, just to make sure your liver didn't just burn up. Well, why is my liver going to burn up? Well, what do these drugs do? Well, they're sort of like a dam in the river. There's a river running through your liver, a cascade of enzymes and products that will end up in cholesterol. And it starts out way up here and goes through different processes, and at the other end, it's cholesterol. It just puts a dam in the middle. Well, what happens if I put a dam in a river? They're always talking about this in China, aren't they? They're going to put a huge dam in and send 20 million people packing. Well, that's what happens in your liver. They put a dam halfway down the stream, and now you've got a whole bunch of precursors piling up, a big lake, and what's happening to those things? Well, they're frying your liver. And yeah, it cut down the cholesterol, but at what expense? And difficulty thinking and remembering is a common side effect. But since you already had high cholesterol and that made it so you didn't think or remember, you don't notice it that now that the pill's doing it, because you're used to that kind of brain dysfunction. Statins are such powerful suppressors of the immune system, they are being studied in transplant immunology as immunosuppressants for transplanting organs. They are that powerful at wiping out your immune system. And so these things are not safe in that regard. And I just quoted what they said in this article because it was very good. In some randomized trials, notwithstanding their short duration, in just short trials, statins have been found to increase cancer incidence, especially in the elderly and women. In these situations, the decrease in cardiovascular mortality, deaths from heart attacks, can be matched by an equal increase in cancer mortality, leaving the all-cause mortality unchanged. Which do you want to die of, cancer or a heart attack? Well, neither. So let's talk about the good things about lowering cholesterol. Let's switch gears and talk about how we can get it down safely and with lifestyle. Dietary lifestyle interventions such as plant sterols, soy protein, fiber, and almonds, and we'll talk about why those are important, have been shown to lower cholesterol by about 28%. Well, how's that compared to statins? About the same. And so compared to lifestyle, statin drug therapy offers no cholesterol lowering advantage. Plant sterols. Why plant sterols? What's the benefit of plant sterols? Well, you remember in our picture of our intestines, we said that the cholesterol mixes with the fat coming down the intestines until you get to the end of the small intestine, and then the cholesterol and fat is absorbed into the bloodstream. Plant sterols compete with cholesterol for absorption at that point. And so the plant sterols will get absorbed, the cholesterol will go ahead and go out in your stools. And so plant sterols are helpful at blocking cholesterol absorption. Plant sterols, if you get 2 grams per day, can lower cholesterol by 14 points. Well, what would 2 grams look like? Where would I get it? What's some good foods that have it? Well, nuts. Nuts are a good source. Seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, beans, and these are sort of in decreasing order of concentration of plant sterols. Amaranth or different grains. Fruit such as navel oranges has been studied, and vegetables. So there's lots of sources of these plant sterols. You don't have to necessarily go looking for them extracted from these sources, but you can certainly eat the foods that have a lot of them. And so another study looked at this, the combined effects of plant sterols, vegetable proteins, and fiber, and I'll tell you why fiber is important here in a minute, has been shown to lower LDL by 29%. Well, that's good. Now notice I put in yellow here, near maximal reductions have been seen in 2 weeks. Why is that important? Well, guess what? Your liver does not change quickly. When it starts producing soap for fat, it does it, and it doesn't take a check to see if it should change for a long time. And so if you decide you want your cholesterol to come down by lowering the fat in your diet, it's going to be 2 weeks before your liver even starts lowering or till you'll see any good effect. And if you eat one high-fat meal during that 2 weeks, your liver resets back up to the top. A friend of mine, physician, had a patient who he was trying to get his cholesterol down naturally with lifestyle. He had him doing all the right things, plant sterols, fiber, good total plant diet, and his cholesterol just stayed up. It just would not come down. And he's wondering, what's going on? Why won't it come down? And he sat down with him in the office and talked with him and says, well, you're doing this? Yeah. I mean, tell me what you ate on Monday, Tuesday. What'd you eat on Sunday? Oh, well, on Sunday, I've been doing so good all week. And on Sunday, I go back to the grill and I go back and I have a big steak just to reward myself for doing so well. He was resetting his liver at high soap output every week, and he was not getting his cholesterol down. You have to stick with the program. You can't cheat once, or your liver will start all over again making lots of soap. So, what are some other things that'll lower it? Omega-3s, like from flax. Flax helps lower it. And if you get 1.5 grams of omega-3, it'll lower triglycerides by 37%. Oh, by the way, if you're trying to get your triglycerides or cholesterol down with omega-3s and you're still eating cholesterol, it won't work either. As long as you're still eating some cholesterol, your cholesterol will stay up. Oxidized cholesterol tends to make your liver pump out more cholesterol too for some reason. Walnuts lower total cholesterol and LDL, while fish raise your cholesterol and LDL. Oh, but they told me I should be taking fish oil. Well, if you weren't taking any oils at all, your cholesterol would be low. If you started eating fish oil, your cholesterol would go up. Daily consumption of 80 grams of walnuts for 4 weeks can reduce LDL by 16%. So walnuts are very helpful. This is back to that comparison between eating nuts or eating oils. All right, let's talk about fiber. Again, back to the intestines. And we said that the liver pumps out the soap, it mixes with the fats, and they get absorbed down toward the end of the small intestine. But if you're eating lots of fiber, the fiber will soak up a lot of the cholesterol and carry it out of your body. And so different fibers have different cholesterol absorbing capacities. And here's a chart that helps you understand that. For each gram of oat bran fiber that you consume, you can expect your total cholesterol to go down by 1.5. Psyllium, Metamucil, will lower it about 1 per 1. Fruit pectin, grapefruit pectin is sort of a favorite one. Fruit pectin, 2.7. So that's real good. Almost getting a 3-to-1 benefit there. And then guar gum is often used as sort of a supplement. Will lower about 1-to-1. 1 gram, 1 point of cholesterol. Carrots, they're high in fiber. And so they're a good source of fiber for reducing cholesterol. They also have lots of antioxidants that help keep your cholesterol from going oxidized. And so carrots are a very good food in this regard. They'll lower your triglycerides as well. Beans. Beans are high in fiber. People who eat more beans end up eating less other stuff, but beans are good at lowering cholesterol. And garbanzos have been studied quite a bit to be a good bean for lowering cholesterol. Chickpeas, you can eat them as garbanzo beans or hummus. Anybody like hummus? I like hummus. Yes, I like to take cut vegetables and dip them in hummus and eat them. When we're on the road and that's an easy meal, you go to a supermarket, get a tub of hummus and a bunch of cut vegetables and go for it. Garlic has been studied. Garlic tends to lower your cholesterol, reduces total cholesterol by 7%. Red onions are even better. They'll reduce your triglycerides by 15%, and they'll lower your cholesterol as well. People tend to handle onions better than garlic a lot of times. But a lot of these studies are with garlic supplements that are deodorized. All right, what about fruits? Fruit are good, and especially because of vitamin C. If you are low on vitamin C, your cholesterol will go up for some reason. And so you want to get plenty of fruit with vitamin C. Where do I get my vitamin C? Strawberries are very high in it. You need about 60 milligrams to meet the USRDA. You may want a little more than that to fight your cholesterol, but strawberries, bell peppers. Notice there's more in red cabbage than there is in lemons. There's some in cauliflower and peas. None in salmon. Now, why would I put that up there? Well, if you're eating food that's totally deficient in a vitamin you need, your body's going to take from its own stores just to survive, and you're going to totally deplete your supplies of that vitamin eventually. And then you'll end up with, what do you end up with if you get too low on vitamin C? Scurvy. Scurvy. That's right. What did they call British sailors? Limeys, because they're always running around with a lime in their mouth to get their vitamin C from a lime. Okay, some of the fruits that have been studied, especially for lowering your cholesterol and combating oxidized cholesterol, are pomegranates. Very high in antioxidants, very good for Alzheimer's disease, by the way. Quercetin is a phytochemical found in apples. Helps with fighting viral diseases as well as reducing the oxidized cholesterol levels in your blood. So that's good. The Hawaiian diet, lots of fruit and complex carbohydrate, low in fat and moderate in protein, can lower your cholesterol by as much as 50 points. So high fruit diet, high fruits and vegetables. Now let's talk about refined foods. We're refined people. Shouldn't we be eating refined foods? Well, no. In fact, when you eat refined foods that are high glycemic load, that would make a diabetic's blood sugar go up, it tends to drive your LDL up and your HDL down. And so if you eliminate all refined sugars from your diet, you can help reverse that process. You can also reduce your triglycerides by about 20%. There are some good sources of sweetening. Honey is a good one. Compared to sugar, honey will lower your total cholesterol by 3%, your LDL by 6%, triglycerides by 11%, blood sugar by 4%. So honey is a better source of sweetening. It isn't just liquid table sugar. It has some benefits. And the more natural you get that honey, the more benefits you'll get out of it. Now let's talk about some lifestyle things beyond diet. One of those is regularity in your schedule. A regular schedule will actually lower your cholesterol. An irregular schedule will make your total cholesterol go up. There's something strange about that. People who eat breakfast regularly have lower cholesterols, and eating it at the same time all the time. Cholesterol is higher after your evening meal. When you eat a large meal at night that has cholesterol in it, it sits in your stomach longer and more of that cholesterol gets absorbed out of that meal. And so you don't want to eat late in the evening because you'll have higher cholesterol. What's more, you go eating between meals, then the same thing happens. The food is longer in your guts, in your stomach, and more of the cholesterol will get absorbed out of that meal. So snacking will make it harder for you to get your cholesterol down. Obesity. And the more overweight you are, the higher your risk of having high cholesterol. On the other hand, if we start reducing the number of calories we eat, caloric restriction by 25% and exercise have been shown to lower LDL and triglycerides. So exercise is good. Gardeners get a lot of exercise. They get sun. The sun changes the cholesterol in their skin to vitamin D. The fresh air helps them. The exercise lowers their cholesterol levels. So athletes usually have lower cholesterols, have higher HDL cholesterols, and significantly lower triglycerides. So how much exercise do I need? Well, they like to take and put a pedometer on somebody. The pedometer counts your steps every time you take a step. And if you're getting 6,000 steps, you can predict that your triglycerides could go down by 10 points and your HDL go up by 3. So, and a lot of the studies look at getting 10,000 steps for a healthy day. 10,000 steps on a pedometer. Dehydration. As you get less and less water, it has to be replaced with something, I guess. Is the same thing true when we talked about diabetes? Remember that diabetes, somebody who is dehydrated has higher blood sugar? The diabetics, when they get dehydrated, it's like a grape versus a raisin. Which is sweeter, a raisin or a grape? Raisin. So, as you get dehydrated, everything gets more concentrated and thicker, including your cholesterol. All right, psychological symptoms. You know, if you get stressed out, stress raises cortisol. Cortisol raises your blood sugar. Blood sugar makes insulin come out, and insulin makes cholesterol go up. And so as you get under more psychological stress, your cholesterol will go up. In this study, psychological stress raised cholesterol by 180%. The risk of elevated cholesterol. Really, stress is how you deal with a situation, not what's happening in your life. And so it kind of calls you to think, I better find ways to deal with stress that won't destroy my body. Laughter may be one of those. Laughing may boost HDL by as much as 23%. Let's all just have a good laugh about that. All right. Religious observance. Study of people who are more religious or practice more religious activities have lower cholesterols, lower triglycerides, and higher HDLs. Well, in summary, don't eat anything that needs lots of soap to digest, that is fats. Otherwise, your liver is going to pump out the soap. Avoid animal protein because it makes your liver pump out more soap, regardless of what's in your diet besides the protein. And you want to eliminate all oxidized cholesterol from your diet. It'll make the liver pump out more soap as well, but it also causes a lot of diseases. Maximize your whole plant food intake, especially with fiber, plant sterols, and drink pure filtered water, pure water. Then exercise regularly so that you'll keep lowering these things, be in better shape. Turn your stress over to God. He's the only one who can really handle it, isn't he?